don't know the power of the
All right, shut up.
of the dark. Of the dark.
Who's the more foolish, the fool or the fool in politics?
It's a trap.
Kid, I flew from one side of this galaxy to the other and seen a lot of strange stuff, but I've never seen anything to make me believe there's one all.
G'day everyone, you are listening to the Space Slugs. Joining us today is a very special guest, Duncan, or Godlyness on the socials. Duncan, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
No, very, very excited to have you here, of course. We also have Cam in the booth. Cam, how you going?
Good, thank you, Tom.
Fantastic. So, look, the reason that we've brought Godlyness on to the cast today, not only is he a phenomenal player, but more specifically, he is world number one at not just the Grand Inquisitor, but also Jedi Knight Luke Skywalker. Also, you've brought both of them to Adepticon Top Cut, so you've seen a lot of success with them recently. Congratulations on that, of course. But more specifically, I guess Grand Inquisitor has been this anomaly in the Star Wars Shatterpoint community for a long, long time. People can't decide whether he's good or not, but I mean, you've firmly decided whether he's good or not, and that's sort of what we wanted to talk about today. So, Godliness, your love for Inquisitor, where did that start?
So when I first got into this game, I was looking at things what I want a primary to do. I want something that hits. I want something that moves. I want something that moves other things. Most primaries don't do one or very specifically the other things. He does all of that, not exceptionally well, but not bad either. So he's very versatile, and that's what I look like for I want a primary. So I saw that, I was like, why do people hate this guy? He has a board-wide move. He can one-shot Vader, technically. And he's decently defensible, not terrible, but again, nothing exceptional. But he's not specialized, therefore he's versatile, giving you options at all times, which options can win games.
Yeah, fair enough. And so would you say that it's not really a lore mechanic, or not a lore reason that you like Grand Inquisitor? It's mainly a mechanical sort of...
Definitely mechanical. Like lore, even after playing him and then I dug into the lore, it's actually kind of entertaining. I was like, all right, I actually kind of like his lore as well. I had to go watch all the shows and stuff, catch up on what I was missing naturally.
So I guess, you're talking about these different specifics that Grand Inquisitor does for you on the table. I feel like a lot of people might see Grand Inquisitor in your opponent's strike team and they might just sort of scoff a little bit. What do you think that Grand Inquisitor presents to your opponent as a problem? Like, what are we sort of... What pressure does he place on your opponent?
He is a hidden pressure. He, by himself, oh, it's just Grand Inquisitor. What's he going to do? And then he walks up and one-shots you. And you're like, wait, what? How did that happen? Or he just wanders onto the point and sits there and you start attacking him. He's like, I have a hunker, I'm in cover. Here's 8 dice, turning your crits off. Oh, I got to jump this time. And that was defensible. Or he's like, he doesn't do anything until your opponent realizes that he can do anything. If you pin him, he can clear it when he activates by dashing. He's the possibility to do whatever you need him to, which is why he's there. When people look across, what's he going to do? Is what do I need him to do? He has reposition on one of his trees, on 2. He has, for me, crossed the table to my back opponent's line from my end because he's walked up, slapped somebody, hit a reposition, and kept going. And I was like, ha, I'm so good at this game. He presents a threat. He's highly mobile, which, again, a reposition on 2 for a 2 on his other tree, the non-Makashi tree. His defense side, more or less. And he just hits it on 2. He walks through. He can be places. He can take points that people how do you get so far? He's a dash, he's a walk, you got to reposition. Where do you want him to be? He's very mobile. He can slap if he needs a slap instead. So his threat is that he can do what your opponent doesn't want him to do. You can't get that point in my back I left open. Watch me. Oh, you can't kill me. Watch me. So his threat is that he can do all those things. It's dice dependent, of course. That is his failing, is that he is dice dependent.
That sort of answers the question that I wanted to ask was, sometimes when the game designers are designing something that has a lot of versatility, that is a sort of jack of all trades, it's usually jack of all trades, master of none. Is there any of those things you think that the Grand Inquisitor doesn't quite give you as much of? You're saying he's very flexible, very versatile, but is there any one of those facets that you think he's just not quite doing on his own anyway?
He doesn't spend force, nor does his force abilities. He doesn't have any way to actually spend a force for a move. That's where he's. So he needs the reposition. He needs the things to. He needs the dice. He needs things to go through. He needs things to happen for him to do anything. If he can't just walk, hunker, dash with a force, and be somewhere. Like he while mobile, he needs to be dice to be mobile.
Right. Yeah. Okay. Well, that's really interesting too, because I think that's something that sometimes when people hear something like this, they don't think about, well, that has to come at a cost, right? Like a character can't be perfectly versatile and also, be able to do all those things well all the time. So how do you try and mitigate that then? Like, what's your strategy around, in terms of whether it's squad building or it's in-play decisions? How are you trying to mitigate that sort of reliance on the dice to get some of that versatility?
Definitely squad building, 100% squad building. I wish he had a secondary that wasn't Django right now, which would be nice. But
yeah, that would be nice for most of the game, I think. There's so many characters that you go, man, I'd love to bring anyone but Django, but he's just the best choice here.
Like, if my options are Django or Riva, for instance, there's an obvious choice there. There
Definitely,
isn't.
Yeah.
Like it, so the secondary, so Django shores up people, so he can pull people off of Django, so Grand Inquisitor can get there, which is nice. But for his other strike teams, playing theme with Inquisitor, because he does have an identity, which people are like, his identity, if you're not playing Force users, it's worthless. I was like, I get a free heal out of this, which clears those conditions off of the thing. So if, for instance, Fourth Sister or Bounty Hunters 2 turned into Inquisitors killed something, you can heal conditions off of Grand Inquisitor, so he's not pinned, so he's not strained, so he can freely move himself around. Like, you do need Inquisitor support, or Inquisitors in general, so that you can kill something with them to remove conditions that were put on him. Assuming he's alive.
Yeah, there's a lot of value in that, I think, as well. Do you find that? Do you find that when you're, as new things are getting revealed, and you're thinking, my baby Grand Inquisitor, are you concerned too much about making sure you can fit the Inquisitorius tag in there, or are you not that concerned about that sort of identity ability?
If I'm bringing Grand Inquisitor, you are definitely bringing an Inquisitor with him, because his identity, his tactic doesn't work without it. Neither, because he can't move him. He can move himself, but moving something else is always good. And not having that benefit of moving something else feels bad. And his squad himself, like his basic squad, like I think everyone at this point knows, is just Grand Inquisitor, Django, Fifth Brother, because he's always bringing Fifth Brother, because the enfeeble from Fifth Brother helps that killing potential skyrocket, obviously, because expose, who knew? But so you're big, that's like the basic squad. The second squad, you can definitely play around with it. Like, you don't need 2 Inquisitors. It would be nice. I think Bounty Hunters, because Bounty Hunters are Bounty Hunters. They can be whoever they want. But you could definitely, Fourth Sister's fine. A-okay. I will not knock her. She has one blank, word on her card, but so be it. That's a support for you. You need at least 1 Inquisitor, I think, if you're bringing Grand Inquisitor. If not, you should play a different character mostly. But
yeah, so would you have the bringing of the 1 Inquisitor? Let's say you still want that coordinated fire expose. If that came from another Empire source in the future, do you think you'd still get rid of Fifth Brother in favor of coordinated fire expose, or do you just want to bring an Inquisitor for the dash?
The dash and the heal and possibly the force refresh is nice. And Fifth Brother is a fine thing, especially when you can he'll break ties, which the mandate's amazing. So if you really need to, you can force a point, or I stole a point by dashing Fifth Brother. Dashing one singular, let's say Bounty Hunter or whatever, over doesn't do as much. It's you're still contesting it, no one cared. But so I think Fifth Brother's still tied to him in this case, even though I've been trying to branch out a little bit. I was maybe I'll do this instead, but so far it hasn't worked out, and therefore I was I'm keeping to my guns until more things come out. Trying to, anyways.
Yeah, definitely.
What do you think is I just had a look to see when sort of the Grand Inquisitor got previewed and revealed. We've known about him for over a year now. The game's been out 9 months now. Why do you think people aren't gravitating towards Grand Inquisitor? What do you think are people looking at and going, yeah, I'm not going to bring, because Fifth Brother is getting a lot of love, but the Grand Inquisitor himself just sort of isn't getting that much in terms of the discussion pieces?
Well, one, probably lore-wise, like, no one really cares about Grand Inquisitor. Like, who is this guy? What is he?
Don't say that.
I care. He was a Jedi, temple
He was
guard,
a Jedi Knight and
fell.
very good at combat. Absolutely. I was actually reading how Jocasta Nu was like, stop, don't read my books because, you're not privy to my temple records. And all he wanted to do was read. That's why he fell to the dark side. Like, I just want knowledge.
He's a cool guy. He's
I
very
think,
cool.
again, I think he's after reading up on him, I was like, oh, you just wanted knowledge, and they just kept saying no and no and no, and finally, like, they're like, "Here's your knowledge." It's a good read, actually. I was like, all right, fair enough.
Imagine falling to the dark side because you weren't allowed to read a book. Come on now.
Yeah. What the heck? What are you doing,
no.
dude?
Secret books, though, about the Force and Sith and Jedi's, and
Not a story the Jedi would tell you.
exactly.
Clever. Yeah, okay. Yeah, so I guess what is correct? What would be the reason, do you think, as Cam said, has been keeping people away from the Grand Inquisitor?
On face value, like, if you want a beat stick, there's Vader, there's Anakin, there's Maul. You want something to slap somebody around, you have just slap around. You want somebody to move somebody around with, like, support. We have, like, Dooku, who I want to call a support because he just walks up and sits there, like, right, like, he can slap. Don't get me wrong, he can slap just fine. His expertise tree is pretty good as well.
Yeah,
but like but on face, like, on paper, he's like, what's he do? He doesn't spend force very much. He doesn't dash around. He's not super mobile at first glance. Like, he doesn't look enticing. I guess he looks bland. He just looks fine, which people don't want fine. They want great. They want the top. They want the cream of the crop of everything. Which,
yeah, that's fair. When his kit was first revealed, the thing that really made waves was the temple records are quite complete and his ability to turn off an objective. And I remember sort of the community swell there thinking, oh my goodness, this guy's the next best thing. I think when we put him on the table and the ranged attack wasn't quite up to scratch, and the melee attack could be good but sort of needed die support, and the objective grabbing wasn't that useful for 2 Force. I think people thought maybe they'd get a little bit more mileage out of it, and I think they just shelved him after that and said, well, sort of bad kit, combined with maybe Third Sister in Reva as well.
He came with Reva, and people kept playing him with Reva and going, this guy is bad because Reva is bad, and they correlate the two with each other, which that's sad, but that's definitely a thing. Like, a lot of his losses is like they play his box with Reva in it, and you go, I don't know why we're losing. I was like, step 1, you have Reva.
Yes.
Well, so maybe before we go into sort of how you approach gaming with Grand Inquisitor, we could touch on the strike team approach. You've said that step 1 is removing Reva. What you've stated that you usually have in a showdown, I guess you'd have Grand Inquisitor, Jango Fett, and then Fifth Brother alongside some bounty hunters. Is that correct for a showdown format?
It would be yes. In this case, it would be Luke, because Luke doesn't care about what his crew is, and he's self-sufficient, and Luke is amazing. But that's a whole different story. And then you need something to move things around with, which in this case, the Stormtrooper Sergeant helps out because he moves Fifth Brother around, which, again, moving your supports around who can take objectives at distance, still amazing. And then you have bounty hunters who can turn into Inquisitors, who can then benefit from the exposed. They can benefit from the identity. They can benefit from his tactic. It costs force, but I think that if it costs me 1 force and I get an objective, therefore that's a good cost. Like a force for a dash seems okay. People pay for that. Why? I'm not upset by doing that. A force for an advance. Great, fantastic. So bounty hunters fit that niche quite well. Their issue is that they're supports with 5 and 4 defense with 8 health. Like, is what it is. Like clone armor. Like,
I mean, it's pretty good.
Yeah, it's the standard support, I guess. Like,
yeah, exactly.
Like, but if there's multiple injured things and they can rock off, spend 2 force for 1 to turn World Inquisitor and 1 to focus and tools to trade, and rock 9 dice at things and get 4 heals on something. That has changed games for me, on top of getting force back sometimes when you kill those pesky Jedi.
Yeah, that's quite cute, actually. And because they've got the damage on their ranged expertise and melee expertise, like the flat damage, then they can be quite consistent with that as well, which is...
They are quite consistent at killing, yes. If they're willing to, like, spent 2 force, I injured 2 different things with their dice, and they're on objectives or not. Like, I've now healed what you've injured on whatever conditions I have on, including themselves. They can heal themselves with that because they're Inquisitors now. They can heal Grand Inquisitor, they can heal Fifth Brother, and again, get force back if it happens. If it does, it does. It doesn't, you know.
And so let's say, you know, you've got your... That would be your showdown strike team. Would that differ in terms of Premiere? Or, because for example, for me, I love playing Anakin and Obi-Wan. I wouldn't really deviate from Anakin with Rex and the ARF troopers, and then Obi-Wan with Ahsoka, and now Echo and Tech. It used to be the Commandos, but I really like Echo and Tech now. But I don't think I'd use either one of them as like the center point of my Premier strike team. Is that the same as you? Are you just making a completely new strike team for Premier, or do you want Grand Inquisitor to be your pillar that you build around?
So even in the Adepticon, I was playing for theme. So my other 2 strike teams, my whole theme was that everyone's an Inquisitor. Therefore, I brought Darth Vader Jedi Hunter because he's an Inquisitor. He brought Barriss and Arfzarfz. You know, he just bought a standard Vader squad, as it were, because Vader. Again, he's an Inquisitor, though. That's the point. And then I brought Maul, Obi, and Fourth Sister because at the time it's like it could play Mother Talzin. It could play any other primary as long as it had Fourth Sister in it. Because again, the whole entire theme was that playing Grand Inquisitor squad plus one of these 3. Which I did that for the simple sake that I personally want to do it on theme because Inquisitors for everyone. But I don't need to have Vader. Like if the new release is coming out, Moff Gideon is going to be coming to hang out with Fourth Sister instead because there's a whole lot of movement hanging out right there.
Yeah, very cool.
Like, so I'm definitely working with that, trying to figure out. Because again, the new stuff's coming out. I just haven't got a new premiere list yet. But the old one was with Maul, Obi, and Fourth Sister. Because I wanted to try. Everyone would have the Inquisitor with them. Therefore, everyone's benefiting from his identity. Everyone's benefiting from something.
So what you're saying there is Grand Inquisitor is indeed your center pillar when you're
100%
games. Yep. And so then, you know, if you go into a Premier team or tournament, you're going to be switching in and out and always playing Grand Inquisitor.
I pick him because people don't know how to play against him a lot of the time.
I do think there's a lot of value in that. As someone who's always been in the mindset in a lot of games like this where I want to play something people don't already know the answer to. I've always been like that because I hate bringing like, you know, here's the meta squad or here's the meta. I've brought that to the table and then they go, well, cool. I know what that can do. I know how to destroy it or at least how to mitigate what it's good at or whatever. I think there's a lot of value in that. Are you finding that there's a lot of value in that people are going, oh, that's what he does? Because people just haven't looked at him in months and we've got so many units now, it's getting hard to keep track. Do you find you're seeing the value?
They get confused when he one-shots their 8 health supports multiple times. They're like, wait, what? He does 8 on... Because most primaries do 7 damage on 4. He does 8 because of his expertise on 4, which that 1 point of damage, the new supports coming out have like 8 health or whatever. Like Superman knows have 8 health as well, like stuff like that. And they're like, oh, I can't be one-shot. I was like, yeah, I just need a few successes. It's going to be painful for you. He gives a shock value of just being like, I was not expecting him to be there. He can walk the table sometimes. Like he just ingress between ingress points, his dash, his walk, his reposition on 2. Like he can steal back points, and people are like, wait, how did he get there? Like they don't expect him to be fast. They don't expect him to be killy. They expect him to be, oh, it's the Grand Inquisitor.
So if people are bringing, let's say the meta shifts, let's say everyone listens to this episode, because obviously they're going to, and so many more people see the light and they go, Grand Inquisitor, he is the chosen one. What sort of meta or what sort of matchup do you not look forward to with Grand Inquisitor on your side? So what's a bad matchup and what could people do to actually mitigate, let's say, a Grand Inquisitor dominating meta? How do you build your squad to sort of counter him?
It's actually probably the simplest thing is just kill his supports still, because if you moving them around does nothing if they're dead. It's just still the basic simple there. Also, shooting and pinning him, pinning his stuff, pinning everything so they can't move around is upsetting. And everything in their brother has pins right now, and it's still upsetting. Stormtrooper's pin, Stormtrooper Sergeant pin, Arf's pin, this guy pins, this person pin. Everyone's pinning everything. I was like, can you?
Okay, so conditions basically. Conditions.
Yes. If you move map position and you pin them, it double the effort to get them back where they need to be, which you don't always have the resources to do because card draw and what's already been played.
Yeah, and I feel like a disarm too, given what you'd said about dice earlier, a disarm that sticks and doesn't get healed off would be very frustrating, I think, as well for a Grand Inquisitor.
Which, thankfully, if he's disarmed and has his dash can still get engaged with somebody, it's actually nice because you can, dash forward, recover, then slap. But
Yeah.
but if he's pinned and disarmed, you're just like, oh.
So we're good. So for all those GI haters out there, just token stack. It's that easy.
Yeah, you can definitely do it. Like people say, "Oh, don't bring force users." Like that's irrelevant. It's a pre-bonus. It's nothing I'm ever looking for. Like,
yeah, I don't think. I mean, there's so many other units that do have a very similar effect with less conditions on it, and you don't see people trying to work around that. I agree with you. I think it's irrelevant to a matchup decision.
But people do have that thought in their mind, like, "Oh, if I bring force users, he can get it back." And you're like, "I don't do anything to force users. I just have to kill you," which is, it's hard sometimes because you're a force user.
Yeah, especially if it's Obi-Wan.
Exactly. Like Obi-Wan's not a matchup I like seeing because his hunkers and his ability to push back onto points has always been frustrating. If you don't pin them, which you can pin them, they just remove it and dash back on. Like Obi's a nightmare matchup because Obi is Obi.
He's just a nightmare matchup for most people.
I pushed you off, or did you? But that's also what comes in with like Fifth Brother in that case, is because like I break the tie regardless. I didn't push you off, whatever, but still mine.
Yeah, definitely. And actually, that's interesting that you say that because I've always found that Inquisitors are a little bit rough for clones, being a clone player predominantly myself, because even if you got a few outs there, right? You can shuffle away one of the clones and then break the tie without attacking them and therefore triggering Obi's ability. But then you've also got like a relatively good shot of actually one-shotting the clones as well. So, oh, cool. Well, I can't take the point, but I can still kill you. And that also turns off Obi-Wan's ability as well. So I've always found that the Inquisitors are actually like a little bit of a sneak victory against, a very fragile sort of Gar strike team. I'm not saying it happens every time because dice are dice sometimes. And I feel like if you don't get the dice that you need against an Obi-Wan Kenobi roster, it can be really painful, as you've articulated. But yeah,
I assure you it is. You should watch the top 4 for the fourth game at Adepticon. It's actually on stream somewhere. I forget. The Momentous Struggle, I think it has it.
Oh, great!
You should watch the game. It was Obi and Mace versus my Inquisitor and Luke.
So I guess I do want to touch on the stats a little bit, but maybe before I do, just off the back of that, you've got a Premier Strike team. Everything's centered around Grand Inquisitor. You've said that a lot of the time dice are going to be what you require to sort of make the most out of him. How often are you just sort of reaching for Darth Vader, Jedi Hunter, noting that he is, of course, an Inquisitor, noting that he can, of course, boost dice, and that is a nice synergy with Grand Inquisitor's identity, in that if he or any Inquisitor does a wound, you can heal. How often are you just reaching for that squad?
So Pavlov's dog theory of me being slapped in the nose, I've lost more games playing Darth Vader and Grand Inquisitor than I have won, which is the opposite of what most people would think. But for some reason, every time I play Darth Vader, I was like, I'm rolling all these dice, slapping around, and then I'm still not getting the successes I need. Like I need 5 successes or 4 successes to get the free ability on the Inquisitor supports, right? Something of the sort. Yep. Never, it's just dice happen, and every time it keeps happening, I'm just like, all right, I didn't get my heal back, therefore now I'm injured. Singing like lowering the Inquisitors, their support's health, so they die quicker. Hurts when you don't get the heal from killing, and you're like, all right, so you didn't die, I didn't get my heal, I took the point though. All right, and then they kill you and take it right back, and you're like, fantastic. That's what I wanted. So reaching for him, yes, like I have played him, but every time I keep playing him, I lose more than I win with him, which is the weirdest thing. I was like, it's Darth Vader, I should be winning. He's slapping people around, except that when he slaps people around, sometimes he doesn't.
Yeah. So apparently in the rated format, if I'm going off the Longshanks data here, Grand Inquisitor and Darth Vader Jedi Hunter, 366 games played total, so quite a few, with a 49% win rate. So right in the middle of sort of where we want it to be, but just not as good as, for example, the Luke pairing. But we'll get into that a little bit later. I'd like to just say, I mean, we've talked about Darth Vader Jedi Hunter on the cast quite a few times, but I think it's worth highlighting again that it sounds like you need to make the most of out of activation movement abilities and some maybe quote unquote shenanigans with Grand Inquisitor instead of just pure attrition, because that really doesn't go along with what he's trying to do, correct? And Darth Vader might fall short of a good game plan there.
Darth Vader will allow you to kill things, and that's what he's good at. It's just that sometimes you need to move more than kill. A lot of the times, like you need to be in the back objectives, you need to take an side objective somewhere. Like you need to move the table more than you need to actually slap things around. Which game ain't all about killing. It's standing on points and going, "Please don't hurt me."
Sorry, yeah, I've just noticed you've mentioned quite a few times movement, and then even in your squad building, it's your conversation around movement, talking about Moff Gideon coming out, more movement. So obviously you place a lot of value on that movement in the Grand Inquisitor, and I think Vader, Jedi Hunter, very good at moving himself, but he just doesn't get to synergize as much as moving your supports and moving other things around. So it seems like that's an important piece to the Grand Inquisitor squad for you anyway in terms of your playstyle.
Vader can take a point if there's only one unit contesting it by killing them. Yeah. If there's 2 units contesting it, he goes, I killed one, and he goes, great, the point's still mine. That doesn't get me points. Vader is great for slapping one thing around, so Vader needs to go walk somewhere else on the table to go do something else. Like I want him to, like, Vader's like, everyone loves Vader. I get it for Jedi Hunter. It's just, every time I keep playing him, he doesn't work as intended.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, not to derail us into a Vader discussion, but I that tracks with a lot of my testing on him as well. And he's very good at, very focal, give me a point and I'll throw some dice at it. But if I get overrun, fear and dead men, etc., but doesn't actually translate to this Vader in particular, because he can be surrounded by two units. And that's sort of, as if they're not from the same unit, those two characters, he's not taking the point back.
Nope. Yeah. And how do you win the game? You score points.
Exactly.
Definitely.
Yeah.
So you were talking about how you were staying on theme for Grand Inquisitor at the Adepticon Premier Tournament, and you ended up having an Inquisitor in each squad, or something that could become an Inquisitor in each squad. Let's say you just took a step back from theme for a moment. Do you think you would replace Darth Vader Jedi Hunter with Darth Vader, the Emperor's servant, or have you not really looked into that yet?
So I would have to steal a 3-cost. I'd have to steal a 3-cost from somebody because I'm using the Sergeant with Luke right now because of the bounty hunters. But, like, for instance, Luke could be just, Darth Vader's box with the Stormtroopers, because Stormtroopers are fine. Don't get me wrong. Stormtroopers are A-okay, completely fine. They're just, they're not bounty hunters. And they have more health, though, but they don't turn into Inquisitor. They don't get the extra movement that I want. Yeah. But they themselves get their own movement from their own thing. So it's a wash in that case. It's just, you want to spend force or not, right? Which, if you have it, you have it. You only have 6 force most cases. So, yeah, Emperor's Servant, like, when he kills something, gets a dash, which dashing Grand Inquisitor give him more mobility. Fantastic. Dashing your other Galactic Empire stuff is fantastic. But sometimes you run into not killing things and shuffling your deck a bunch of times and not doing anything. So, like, if you kill something, fantastic, the world is green. It's when you don't, is like, what's your backup plan now?
Okay, yeah. And so what about Moff Gideon then? He excites you a little bit more?
Oh, Moff excites me a lot because he does everything I want. So one, he gives more dice to Grand Inquisitor when attacking melee, which already we're happy. He has Inquisitorial Mandate, which everyone kept telling me that putting that on a primary would be too powerful. And then I look at Moff going, weird, why doesn't Inquisitor have this? Grumble, grumble.
Yeah.
Grumble, grumble. But so he's doing that. He also gives a reposition to like Fifth Brother or a support for, again, movement again for your supports, putting him on points, out of activation movement. And his tactic can move himself and Grand Inquisitor, or vice versa, or Fifth Brother, or whoever he's running with. Like, he can move people. And that's all you need him to do is to walk. Like, him fighting and attacking, it's fine. Like, he's A-okay at doing so. Like, he gets plus dice to himself as well. Like, Moff is fun. I don't mind Moff. I'm still getting used to him. He's a slower pace than the other primaries because, again, he's not Darth Vader. He's not a Maul. He's not a, Luke. Like, he is a pure support kind of guy, which I'm getting used to him. I want to see if I want to keep working with him. But right now, yes, because of his movement shenanigans, I like him.
Okay, great. Yeah, so movement focus is definitely your mantra. So are you going to take out maybe, because it sounds like you love Luke and what he's bringing to the table. It sounds like, everyone loves Maul. So is your first point of call going to be removing Darth Vader Jedi Hunter and putting in Moff Gideon instead?
That's a question, right? It's like it's either Maul or Vader. I'm replacing, and if I think the easiest one to replace would be Vader. Oddly enough, because then I'm definitely putting Fourth Sister with Gideon, because again, it's that way that squad has two mandates, and you're like, my point, it's mine now. You can't have my point. And the Death Trooper escort is actually fine because he moves both my supports just fine, and he himself is. He's the Rex of the Empire. Like he himself is a-okay. Like so like you have ability to move all your stuff around. Everyone has their own movement abilities when they activate. The force costs are actually kind of low. Like you have jumps, and you might spend one for the Death Trooper escort, the dash. Like you're jumping and you're spending 3 there. Maybe you'll spend 4 on your primaries when they get attacked or need to run somebody around. Like it's not force intensive, so you're not worried about that too much. And it's just you can be places. You have extra dice on things. You have a gun. And you also have Django still, mind you, because Django is Django in the corner. Like you have all this displacement for diceless. So like versus Obi, for instance, you can just yank him around, pull him off points. I'm excited about that, absolutely. But then I was like, who do I play now with my fourth squad? I haven't decided yet. Like I'm actually trying to figure out. I was like, who do I play with them now?
Yeah, it's always difficult. That's why I like Premiere format so much. I mean, there's so many choices that you have to make. You can't just whack all what I mean, to use tier lists, which is not something that I love, but you can't just whack all your S tier, quote unquote, sort of units in one squad or one strike team and say, all right, yeah, I'll do this for the whole tournament. You have to make some choices, which is really cool. So look, let's have a look at the stats. And I mean, this is something that the Slugs have focused on quite a bit. And I think for a good reason. I think they provide a really good framework for a lot of decisions. But I also do want to emphasize, and this is one of the reasons that we brought Godlyness on the channel, is to emphasize that stats aren't giving you the entire picture, right? So, I mean, Grand Inquisitor has previously sat outside of that nice 45 to 55% win rate parameter that we sort of established in episode 1, but now he's at 46% win rate across the rated format. So that's good. That means he's performing sort of where I guess the designers probably want him to be performing. You know, he's doing well with some specific matchups. Maybe Premiere has given him a bit of a boost. So I just wanted to talk about some of the matchups and see where your thoughts are in terms of how you'd approach it. Like, so if we go off the stats, Grand Inquisitor's worst matchups with more than, a decent number of games, which would be roughly about 50, would be General Grievous with a 33% win rate. Do you find General Grievous particularly bad, like droids in general and all the movement shenanigans that they bring?
So droids have one ranged attacks, which ranged attacks aren't the best for Grand Inquisitor's squad and friends generally just is. And he hits really hard and he brings his friends with him. Like that's so when he brings his friends, he attacks, they attack. Even if he doesn't kill you, his friends kill you.
Yeah.
And Grievous, slaps decently hard by himself. Like,
oh yeah, big time.
He brings friends. He brings 2 buys to a point. And the out of activation movement of Separatists in general also is like, so if I can put buys on points, so can he. Like I can win the tie. Like it's just Grievous on a point. I could send a support over there, be on it, be happy. Or I can pull him off of it, be on it, be happy. But there's 2 bodies there. Now I need to displace a body and get that other body off. Like it's 2 different units. That's one of those like Vader losses. Like I can definitely kill one. Yeah. What about the other one? So Grievous brings friends, and the movement of Separatists in general bring friends with them. Which that's like they outbody points, and Inquisitors in general have a low body count. I can't be everywhere. You can, which. Grievous being everywhere, well, I should say bringing his supports everywhere and whatnot, they can control multiple points. I can't do that. Like that's one of the weaknesses of Inquisitors, that having a single body support is that I can't hang out with friends. Like there is no friends. Like I have to risk them dying by themselves more often than not.
Okay, nice. So you'd say that statistic probably rings true, and that he could be quite problematic for the Grand Inquisitor. What would your advice be in terms of facing General Grievous, maybe in a Premiere? Would you reach for something else at that point? Would you go for, your Luke and Maul squad maybe, or something similar? Or are you just a diehard Grand Inquisitor player and you kind of do it no matter what?
Well, that is true 100% actually, because I would do it regardless, because I would gamble because I'm a huge gambler. Apparently, all the time. Actually, is like I would gamble on the fact that I can either kill his supports or kill Grievous and whatnot, and still displace them enough that if I get on his supports before he gets on my supports, I will deny him his ability to move on other objectives faster than me. Therefore, I'll hopefully stay ahead of him in that way. And if I'm healing from that, if I'm attacking, being the attrition, I'd play the attrition game in that case. I would reach for Darth Vader, even though it's a bad choice. Actually, I'd reach for Maul, let's be honest, because Maul in this case is like he can clear the point out just fine.
Yeah, and shove another character.
I'd either reach Maul and honestly, I'd reach my optimal bet would be Luke though, because Luke will do all the things I want.
Okay, yeah. So you're going to keep the Grand Inquisitor no matter what, but then reaching for Maul or Luke to provide some displacement and some extra attacks
to get two bodies off a point easily. Yep. I need to clear them off. If I need to clear two bodies, I'm reaching for Luke first, Maul second. If I need, depending on where I'm in the list building, like who I have to play for the list for playing everybody once.
Yeah, nice. No, I think that's a really, really great comprehensive breakdown. I find that Grievous is incredibly strong. I think he's an amazing primary that might deserve a little bit more time in the sun than he's getting. So that's really good to hear that he does cause someone some headaches. And not
100% does. 100%.
And the next on the list, and we won't go through all of the matchups, of course, because I'm just focusing on the bad ones for the audience. And, maybe some Grand Inquisitor diehards here will get something out of how you approach it and therefore become successful with it. The next one would be Jedi Hunter, Darth Vader. 35% win rate against Jedi Hunter with Grand Inquisitor. How do you find that matchup in general? And what are you going to usually attempt to do? Would you 1v1 Grand Inquisitor with Darth Vader? Or, what's your general approach?
If I'm not exposed, yes. Mm-hmm. If there's an ARF trooper hanging right there, it doesn't matter what you're doing, you're going to die. Like, it's... Yep. Like, if there's no ARF trooper hanging out, Grand Inquisitor will probably take that. But Darth Vader's doing the thing of just walking up, and because of my limited bodies again, he's one-shotting the fifth bro. He's killing the other supports and taking that point, which that's all he needs to do, because it's optimal Darth Vader target saturation, aka one body, one unit to kill, to move things. Like, as soon as he starts doing that, again with the shatter point, like, he activated, killed something, activate again, killed something. You're down either two supports, your secondary support, or maybe a primary as well. Like it many times. Like, so I can see why it's there. It's just you got to play. So Darth Vader, if it's an elevated objective, and there's no ladder to immediately walk. If there's a single advanced ladder to Darth Vader to get to, he's reaching the table. You can't stop it. Just hope he rolls bad, which like you can't stop it. But if not, if you run the backside of objectives, what are you positioning? Positioning's key here. A walk and a climb won't reach the backside of an objective for melee. He'd have to throw a saber at you, which means you're not dead, and there's a possibility his dice might fail if not get a push off. Or if you're steadfast and you don't care, whatever.
With fifth or something. Yep.
Yes, like you need someone that or if you're two bodying it at the back end. Like, so if it's just a straight shot, like there's no terrain in the way, he can walk up to the center line with double advance and punch you off regardless. Like, there's no escaping Mr. Vader walking up and killing you. That's the main issue, is that he can just walk up and kill your supports with basically no recourse, because Jedi Hunter, it's what he does.
Yeah, definitely. I think, and again, this isn't necessarily a Darth Vader thing. This is more of an attrition piece thing in Shatterpoint. I'd say that it can feel really bad if you're facing an attrition strike team, if they get really good order draw. Let's say it's, right-hand side. I move up a supporting unit, then they get their attrition piece and kill my supporting unit. And then I get, a secondary, and then I move up, and then they draw Shatterpoint and they kill the secondary, etc.
Smack it right back down. You go.
Yeah, exactly. However, a lot of the time, if they don't time those draws perfectly and you are able to get that sort of second character from a different unit on that same point, you've almost neutered their game plan for at least struggle one, right? Like it becomes really problematic for an attrition piece to just constantly apply pressure unless they're drawing perfectly. And that's why I've found clones quite good, because there's so many options to move your characters around. Like in my Anakin and Obi-Wan strike team, for example, I can split two characters from the supporting units. I can send an ARF trooper over here and an ARF trooper over there. Then Ahsoka can move one of my characters and Rex can move one of my supporting units, etc., etc. Like, I really like that ability to just plant bodies all over the board to really counter attrition pieces. So anyway, that's a bit of a tangent.
No, it's true though. Like that's what needs to happen is that you need more bodies before they can keep wiping them. But sometimes the order deck just says no, and you go,
Exactly.
cool. And what's the backup plan? Well, hopes and dreams, and hopefully they roll less better on the other side.
yeah, definitely. So we'll go into the last two sort of quote unquote bad matchups that sit outside of that 45 to 55% win rate for Grand Inquisitor, with a decent number of games. So the next one would be 53 games into Luminara, where Grand Inquisitor only has a 40% win rate. So what do you make of that? Is it just because Luminara is tanky and therefore you can't sort of play?
Luminara doesn't do anything in that list. It's whatever the other strike squad is and what she brought with them and using her identity. Luminara is just the faceplate of that. Like, it's nothing she's doing except existing. Like, if you're attacking Luminara, you can expose her and it's, 6 dice or 5 dice with you punching her. Like, if you can't expose her, you don't attack Luminara. Like, that's just general simple. Yep. It's like her expertise. She's really good on Sarasu. really, really good.
Yeah.
But like she herself, she doesn't do, like, she's not fast enough. She doesn't do enough. Like, but her identity though, when they kill your stuff, it's same thing with the nutrition piece. The dashes puts you on points. It's out of movement. Oh, you killed something. So like, instead of being like my bounty hunters want to kill 2 different things with their guns, I kill one. She heals the other one, which then, now I can't kill it and get the benefits that I want. So, like, I could see, like, it's not that she's doing anything by herself. It's just that her identity is doing so much work based on what her, like, I wish I knew what the teams were for that, because I'm pretty sure it's just pure aggro for everything. Like, which is fine. Like, don't get me wrong, like, she's a primary that exists to be awesome. Like,
yeah, win more sort of vibe.
Like,
yeah.
Exactly. Like, she's like, if you kill something, you get a free dash to put yourself on the objective, or to put somebody else on you pushed them off the objective, pushed it back on the objective now, and now you have 2 bodies to my 1, because you pushed one off and stole it with Fifth Brother, for instance. They steal it back now. You're like, I just did all this work.
Yeah.
So I can see why it's a loss, because like it's whoever was paired with her is the real thing there. They're just using her as a springboard mostly. Like,
so the last one would probably be fairly similar to General Grievous, and it's Count Dooku. So 43% win rate, which is slightly better than Grievous. I'd assume because Count Dooku's not quite as killy as General Grievous is, and Appetite for Destruction can really put the pressure on even further. But Dooku has the benefit of course, dashing someone, then moving someone else with, Magna Guard following him around, etc.
Dooku generally has his Magna Guard, and when he walks to the center point or the side point, depending on where it is, he literally has himself and a Magna Guard, 2 bodies in the point, and you have to attack the Magna Guard. If you roll any misses, which Magna Guard are, Beskar armor defenses, Beskar, I mean, like, Mando armor, which is amazing. 1 for 1, 2 for 2.
Great,
just pure great. Wish my Inquisitors had that. Why don't they?
Why don't clones have that? You know what I mean? I'd love it.
Clones can have clone armor. All right, they're allowed to have their clone armor, but Inquisitors better than the clone, quote unquote, trained better, quote unquote.
Yeah, you'd think so. What I'm trying to distill here is the quote-unquote uncomfortable matchups. I hesitate to use bad, but uncomfortable matchups for Grand Inquisitor are usually attrition mixed with like high mobility. The ability for you to get bodies on a point that prevent Grand Inquisitor's team from sort of removing multiple bodies from said point and then putting that attrition pressure on. Yeah. So when you're seeing a strike team like that, and you're dedicated to Grand Inquisitor, you're usually gravitating towards Luke or Maul as your other
You're looking
pairing.
for something that can do damage and displacement at the same time, which Luke and Maul both do that, because we can just either kill them, which then stops them from dancing around, or you can displace them, which then they need to spend those resources to dance back onto the point, which you're trying to outpace them in the game of mobility and attrition, and those 2 pairings work well with that, which is nice.
Yeah, no, I think that's really, really great, comprehensive sort of advice in terms of how to approach the Grand Inquisitor. And for anyone that's listening, if you didn't catch it at the very beginning, Godlyness is of course the top-rated Grand Inquisitor player in the world, alongside Jedi Knight Luke Skywalker. And you've got a 72% win rate with your Grand Inquisitor character. Definitely some useful advice there for the players. Cam, any sort of things that you found interesting there, or anything you want to add in?
I really do appreciate. I think you've got some really good insight into the Grand Inquisitor, because I think, again, he doesn't have the most games played because people have just sort of been writing him off for so long. So it's really, really great to actually hear someone who's been putting him on the table, understands his strengths, understands his weaknesses, and I hope listeners have really grabbed a lot, not necessarily just for the Grand Inquisitor, but for a sort of, an idea of how to look at some units that just aren't, they're not the most popular units just yet, and maybe start thinking about how they could become the best units. Is there any units you think might be getting slept on? I know you've been very laser focused on Grand Inquisitor for so long, but do you think that there might be another unit out there that people might be sleeping on?
So people slept in Luminar for a while, but then their identity shopped up, naturally. I think Grievous still is amazing. He was actually still my first love. It's just I gravitated to Grand Inquisitor because Grievous does one thing only, which is smash pretty hard, bring his friends with him, but, sometimes lets him suck. He's not defensible as I want him to be because he doesn't have defenses.
Yeah, definitely.
His defenses are just sort of that big base durability, can't be shoved sometimes if you wedge him in a corner. Yeah.
Which some people just one-shot him like, I do 11 damage in 2 hits with my supports. You shouldn't be able to, but all right.
Yeah, I love General Grievous. I took him and more to the CanCon, which is sort of a mini version of Adepticon here in Australia, and I absolutely love that strike team. I think he's fantastic.
I feel like Grand Inquisitor is the slept-on unit.
Yeah.
So it's a hard question to answer because I don't think anything can, maybe C-3PO and R2-D2. Maybe that's the unit everyone's sleeping on.
My brother loves them because they remove conditions from Ewoks and stuff before they activate. And let me tell you how annoying it is when you pin things and they're not, all of a sudden they're not pinned. They can freely move around and do what the hell they want.
Okay.
Also, the scale on certain maps. If you look at a map, because when you're bringing your relationship, the map happens first. So you're like, oh, do I need scale here? Do I need to go up and down terrain? Really good. Steadfast otherwise. Again, they bring a lot of utility, and people are sleeping on them. Like, they're not attackers. They're not there to attack things. They're literally be a body on a point, and they can tell other things to attack, just what's the word looking for? They can tell us things to attack. They're a pure utility, like with Leia, for instance, as well. Like, she gets all the benefits from them, and it. So yeah, C-3PO I think is actually a good sleeper call. People are like, oh, he's not an attack. He doesn't do anything. They just exist. I was like. But existing on points scores you, and who wants to attack these guys? Like,
yeah.
Who wants to punch, the droids? They're not doing anything, quote unquote, until they start Ewok start scaling around you, climbing the things, and or being steadfast all of a sudden. Like, I didn't push the Ewoks off. You certainly didn't.
I think further to the C-3PO R2-D2 point, in the concept of dead draws has been making some rounds recently. And if the audience want to listen to a really good breakdown of that, go check out Zion's Finest recent episode with Vince Chan MCP. I'll put the episode description in the show notes. It's a really good listen, and Vince does a really good job of sort of explaining the concept of dead draws. So C-3PO and R2-D2 might have a great impact on the board all the time in terms of removing conditions and providing scale and maybe holding a point. But when you actually physically draw them as a card, it might just sort of be a bit of a momentum hit that could be difficult to come back from.
They do have pushes on their attack.
On angry trilling, yeah.
They can nudge you around, which, funnily enough, that actually happened. I got nudged off a point, and then they walked up and told an Ewok to shoot me, which then the Ewok killed the injured unit and stole a different point. I was just like, I hate everything these guys just did for... So maybe I'm biased on them just pushing me around and doing things. I was like, mind you, they pushed Darth Vader around, and I lost that game to C-3PO and Ewoks, oddly enough.
Darth Vader Jedi Hunter gets pushed very often, though. Like, he's so susceptible to it with no crit mitigation or anything like that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So further to Cam's question, maybe slept on units. What's your next sort of experiment with Grand Inquisitor? Where do you want to take him next? I know Moff Gideon's on the cards, but what's that little unit in the back of your mind that you're thinking, I really want to put 10 or 15 reps into that just to see how it works?
I want to try replacing Django with Death Trooper Escort to start us out with, just because if Django takes the nerf he deserves and should get at some point soon, at some point this man should not be as good as he is, and therefore I need something to replace it with. I need to put reps in something else, which the Death Trooper Escort is what I want to try replacing Django with. He loses diceless, he loses that, but he's a body on a point, and you can't really push him off the point really easily.
Quite quick as well, the Death Trooper Escort.
He's quite quick. He can shoot.
As Rex.
And his a force ability that if he's shot and not wounded, he can reposition towards the objective. So if you push him off the point, he can just push himself or reposition back onto the point. So there's that. Unless you pin him, of course, because everyone loves pin. Gumble, 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 gumble.
I feel like that might be your least favorite condition. Are you picking that up as well, Cam?
Yeah, I'm hearing a lot of anti-pin propaganda.
Nerf pin.
But yeah, I'm going to try using him instead of Django, just because I need to get more reps with it. Because again, Django, by all accounts, should eventually not be as good as he is, because he's just detrimental for the game, honestly.
Hopefully, I mean, I'm always, and I think most player bases usually fall into the please buff, don't nerf camp. I don't know where I sit on that. That's an interesting topic of conversation, I think. I think I would rather start seeing some of the other secondaries get uplifted a little bit to maybe match with what Django's doing.
I agree with you. You should just give Grand Inquisitor Inquisitorial Mandate, and you should give Reva Inquisitorial Mandate.
Well, I think Reva at least. I think Reva at least.
Yeah, so Reva, she's actually real simple. One, give her the expertise equal to or better than her supports. Let's just start there, because why is her 1 to 2 a single hit when theirs is a crit and she's like, well, it's the same amount of dice as them? Like, just that alone boggles my mind. I'm like, I don't understand. How is she less defensive than these guys?
Yeah, I think that might be, I think AMG may need to review and then probably they have since then, because so far I don't feel like there's been much dead on arrival, although looking at the weak ways, not to get too deep into the weeds here. But I do think they need, at that point, and this is one of the earliest squad packs that we actually ended up getting. I think it might have been a playtesting issue. It may have been too good in playtesting, and then they sort of brought it back towards the end of the playtesting phase, and then never got a chance to get looked at again. I think that's probably what happened with Fourth Sister. I reckon in playtesting, these guys were probably just the bane of everyone's existence, and that's why they've released a little bit, wet noodly.
Well, everyone's assumption is that, you're playing it with Jedi Hunter, Vader, they're rolling 10 dice, they're rolling all these extra dice. That's what we're basing this off. It's like, you can't base this off of something they could bring when then you're forcing them to bring that. Like, that's not, you're not doing anything for the piece you're trying to balance. You're just making it worse because they could bring something over here.
Yeah, I definitely think so. I definitely think that was probably part of the playtesting process too, was, all right, we need to put lots of reps into the Jedi Hunter and we need to see how this all works. And I think it probably overperformed in testing. That's my sort of game theory.
Yeah, but give her Inquisitorial Mandate and, get rid of that your fear betrays you, because no one will ever use that ability. It's never been used in the history of ever, so...
Yeah, that's a blank one. That's a blank one for sure.
I'm going to spend a force, remove all your conditions to roll extra dice, which you need to roll to even get comparable to the supports. Yeah. Great.
Very strange. I feel like there's a lot of passion there, and I understand it. So, look, I feel like you've done a real great job of describing what to reach for with Grand Inquisitor, and sort of what to do when you see specific matchups that don't perform very well. Going off the Longshanks data. If you haven't sort of sold the audience on the Grand Inquisitor yet, what would one last sales pitch for them be?
Use that 4 dice lightsaber throw. It seems worthless. It is worthless. But if you get a reposition off of it because you really need it or want to go somewhere, throw it at somebody. If you can expose them as well, please. It's a junk ability. It's a junk raise attack. But it will win you games.
Okay, I like that. I like that a lot.
Okay, yeah, that's good. Because I also look at it and go, 4 dice. I'm not even going to bother. I'm just going to hunker, exactly. Like it's not going to do me anything. Yeah, fair enough.
But it gives you a push on 1. If you hit the repo because they rolled poorly or they're exposed, it will send them. Like you can reposition better than just hunkering.
Yeah, definitely. Now, so the one last question that I have, just on terms of that expose, because the delivery or the execution of providing enfeeble off of Fifth Brother can be a little bit tricky. What's your real tip with that for the audience? Because I know that the range 4 can throw people off a lot, but coordinated fire expose is unbelievable. However, range 5. So what's your game plan with Fifth Brother to make the most of that? Because that can be incredibly backbreaking for your opponent.
1, you grumble that it's range 4, and then you make sure that you measure range 4 because you're like, all right, range 4, you're going to dash from Grand Inquisitor. Again, you have other ways to move Fifth Brother out of activation, which is nice. You keep moving him up where you need it. Want him more central or in between these center 2 points, like holding an objective in the center between the center and the side points, like whichever side he's on. I'll be holding one of them, but farther to the left or right. So you can either shift left or right where you need to, and it gives you the most coverage for the enfeeble. And Grand Inquisitor and Fifth Brother generally will hanging out in that general side of the table together, unless they need to go walking. Which, again, if you need to go walking to steal points, so be it.
Yeah, awesome. Yeah, fantastic. Okay, well, look, Duncan, thank you so much for joining us today and providing that really comprehensive breakdown of the Grand Inquisitor. I definitely got a lot out of it. I would say, definitely going to respect his presence on the table a lot more now, especially with these little tips that you provided. So thank you so much. And yeah, best of luck. Congratulations at doing so well with Grand Inquisitor at Adepticon and in general. And I can't wait to see what you do with him next.
Awesome. Well, thank you for having me.
The ability to destroy a planet is insignificant next to the power of the Force.